The Adult Ballet Studio is a podcast featuring conversations with the empowering voices of the adult ballet community, a world where passion has no limits and dreams can take flight. My name's Elizabeth Blossfield, and I'm an adult ballet dancer and your host. Welcome to the studio. Happy Tutu Tuesday, everybody, and welcome back to the Adult Ballet Studio. Today, I'm interviewing someone who had a mid-career shift to ballet and Pilates and has really succeeded in carving out her own lane in the world of adult ballet. I was so happy to connect with her. Julie Dupas is a Pilates instructor and the founder and artistic director of Amsterdam Amateur Ballet, an inclusive and affordable amateur adult performance group based in Amsterdam. She's also the founder of Morlaix Ballet Camp, an international summer camp designed for adult amateur dancers to learn and perform a complete ballet from the classical repertoire alongside professional ballet dancers. Dancers who attend the camp spend 8 days taking ballet classes and learning the repertoire with an international team of teachers, including Julie. We'll talk more about both of those incredible programs in our interview. But as for Julie's own background, she danced jazz for most of her childhood and started ballet in her early 20s. After noticing the lack of opportunities for adults to progress, to be taken seriously, and to perform, she went on to create opportunities for herself and others who share her same passion for ballet. Before switching careers to ballet, Julie was a scientist with a PhD in biology. She used to work as a biology teacher for 5 years, and we'll talk in this interview about how her science background has served her in ballet and what she hopes adults take away from her classes. We'll also discuss the anxieties and ultimately the benefits of making a mid-career shift and her advice for other adults beginning ballet later in life. I loved talking to Julie. She was so funny and kind, and you can see her passion for adult ballet come through. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Hi, Julie. How are you?
Hello.
I'm really happy to meet you. I read all about the work that you're doing. I think it's awesome, what you're doing for the adult ballet community. I was wondering if you could start off, just for anyone who's not familiar with you and your work, if you could just give an overview of your background and some of the work that you do.
Okay, so I didn't prepare anything, so that if I go off track, you let me know. So,
No worries.
My name is Julie. I am French, but I currently live in the Netherlands. I started ballet when I was 22, so I'm an adult starter. I'm 35 now. I've danced other stuff before, but not ballet. I wanted to do ballet when I was a kid, when I was 12, and I got told by the local school that at my age and having the physique that I have, which is roughly what I'm looking like now, it was too late to start, because basically I had too much chest, to put it that. So I know. So I put that aside and went horse riding. And then I had some really bad injuries in my back when I was 20. And I got some hernia in my back. I had to stop my study for a year. I got my first year of master's degrees, because here the master's degrees in 2 years. And I had to stop for a year because my back was really bad and I couldn't sit, I couldn't stand, I couldn't do anything. And it started to get better, and there was adult ballet classes at the local school, and I went, it changed owner, so let's try. And I tried, and I got hooked up. I took my studies again, so I finished my master's degree and went on to do my PhD. So I have a PhD in biology. And whilst I was doing my PhD, I was dancing. I got into the local conservatory of dance in France. I was doing that, so 5 days a week. And I was doing my studies at the same time. So that's how it started. And then during my time at the conservatory and at my PhD, I discovered a ballet camp that was held in Finland. And that was just made for adult dancers. And they were doing a production of a ballet every summer. And they had 2 professionals doing the main role. So at that point, I had 4 or 5 years of dance under my belt. And I decided to go. And that was the best summer of my life. And there until they closed down. Their last year was 2009 because they didn't have a space anymore to hold the camp. So they closed down, and I went hell no, there's no way that's closing. So I took over. So now, since we had our first edition in 2022, because the previous 2 years, were closed because of COVID. So we had our first summer in 2022. We had another summer last year, and we're having another one this year. So I have a summer camp in Bretagne. So it's in the west of France, in the countryside. That's only for adults. You need to be 18 plus to register. We don't accept younger. And we dance for 8 days, and we learn a ballet in 8 days. I mean, a shorter version of the ballet, of course. And we invite two dancers, professional dancers, to do the main characters. This year we're doing Giselle, and that was going really well. But I can only accept a certain amount of people. Because of the size of the theater, we're limited with how many people we can have. So this year we created a second week of camp at the end of August because we had people asking for it. So we have a second week of intensive at the end of August, but this time it's a little bit more like classical intensive, which is class, point work, repertoire, pas de deux, and then some stretching to relax. So we have a more traditional camp. So that started in 2019. And last year, I started another project, but this time in Amsterdam, not in France, which is me realizing the lack of opportunities that adult dancers have to perform. Most of the time at the school you are here, they don't even write shows for adults. It's only kids. Or you have to pay a lot to just be in the show. Like, you need to take that amount of private lessons to be able to participate in the show. And I thought that this is not fair. And I created what's Amsterdam Amateur Ballet. And we meet once, sometimes twice. Most of the time once a week for 2 hours. And we create a short ballet in that amount of time. So we have roughly 17 to 22 lessons, and we put a short ballet, which is between 35 and 45 minutes. And it's mostly kids, like kids show, it's not it's family audience. So to open up ballet to everybody as well. So I have those two projects going on. And now I'm not using my PhD anymore. I'm a Pilates teacher, because I didn't like academia in the end.
No, it's so interesting. I was reading a lot about you preparing for this interview, and I love that story that you saw that there was such a gap for opportunities for adult ballet dancers, and then you just really went and did something about it. And I think it's so cool what you're doing. I can't wait to talk about all of it.
Yeah. So I realized for myself the lack of opportunities, and I realized quickly that if you're not the one in charge, no one's really going to do anything. They all have those beautiful words like, yeah, we should, but they never do. So I'm like, let's do it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, you really have to be the one to raise your hand and speak up and get things done, because it is, it's so hard to create those opportunities in ballet sometimes, especially if you're a part of a big studio. And so it's really cool that you just kind of made a lane for yourself. I wanted to talk a little bit about your work with Amsterdam Amateur Ballet, because I know you mentioned that for this term, you're at Amsterdam Amateur Ballet, you're dancing a short piece called Lilac Fairy and Her Friends, composed of various excerpts from Sleeping Beauty. Can you talk about that piece and the upcoming show with that?
So we are, I wanted to do a little bit longer, but we're still at the beginning of the project, so we're not as many as I was hoping, but I mean, we're doubling our numbers every semester, so that's progress. We are currently 7 dancers, and we're putting part of Sleeping Beauty together without the Sleeping Beauty part. So basically, we do the prologue without Carabosse, because we were missing someone to do Carabosse. We're doing the prologue and just a mazurka at the end. So we changed a little bit the story, which is like, there's a king, he's a single father, because we were missing a queen. So he's a single father. He has a kid, and he wants the kid to be blessed by the fairies to, go over the death of the mom. And then he invites the fairies to come and the fairies are dancing. So we do the variation of the fairies. We're not on point because the theater that we have is a bit too harsh of a floor. Safety first. And so we do the variation of the fairies and then the adagio and everything. And then we are all happy because we bless the baby. And on we go. Let's all be happy with a mazurka to finish. And it's 35 minutes.
Oh, that's perfect. I love it. It sounds like a great show. And I know you mentioned a lot of the work that you do at Amsterdam Amateur Ballet is putting on shows for younger audiences, mostly kids.
We're like, it's nice not to have too long for kids, but it's also nice to offer some kind of, classical things as well. So they discover like beautiful costumes and a little bit of a story. And after the show, we offer a little activity for the kids. This year, they're going to have to, we're going to hide some little ballerina, ballerina in paper or cartoon of big paper. And we're gonna hide them in a theater, and they're gonna have to find them.
That's really cool. So you're providing opportunities for both kids and adults to engage with ballet. I love that. And I know you mentioned on your website that this term will be the first time you're also experimenting with incorporating Zoom, where people who live far away from Amsterdam can join on Zoom. So can you talk about why that was important to you?
So around my Amsterdam Amateur Ballet started with the ballet camp happening. So in the ballet camp, I met people, and they were also like complaining about the lack of opportunities to perform. I was like, oh, let's do something. And then some people that don't live in Amsterdam, but with easily access to train, but it's a bit far, were like, we would like to join, but we can't come every week because, it's 2-hour train one way and then the other, and I have work and everything. And we're like, then what don't we do? You come once in a while, at least once a month, and the rest of the time we meet online. So they join us every week online, and we learn stuff. So we have to think. Placement work is a little bit more complicated because we have to remember where everybody is. They come once a month for the rehearsal, and then we finish what we've done. For now, the people that we have online are quite advanced, so it works really well because they're able to pick up a lot of stuff by themselves. So that works well.
I know you mentioned the Amsterdam Amateur Ballet kind of came out of Morlaix Ballet Camp.
Yeah.
I know that you have a July ballet camp that's coming up for adults. And I was curious how many years you've done that. And can you talk about what you hope that the adults kind of take away from that camp?
So before I went to create the ballet camp, I went to the Finnish version of it for 5 years. And it was always the best summer of my life to be like with people, just adults, and not teenagers at the conservatory that have a completely different mindset. Teachers that are also like believing you being an adult and not just you being at the background because you were an adult and not a teenager with chance of being a professional. So it was nice to have that opportunity to dance and learn things, but also to be seen and not just be always at the background because you're an adult. And so I decided to take over. We were supposed to do it in 2020, which didn't happen, obviously, for obvious reasons. Came in 2021 because France still had some quarantine stuff, which would have made people come 2 weeks before, which was not happening. Mm-hmm. And so the camp is this year will be the third time in France. We were, I think, 24 the first year. The second year we were full. We opened our registration in November. We were full by February. And this year we were full in 3 weeks.
Wow, congratulations. That's amazing.
So it's for me an opportunity to offer to adults to be really considered like they are dancers and not just the second hand, but like really they are properly dancers. And yes, they can learn stuff, and yes, they can improve from year to year because we see it every year. We already seen between first year and second year people improving. So we see that a lot. It's both the stage, I think, for me, the stage experience, that's fun. Like just learning a piece, not just taking classes, and like performing a piece that makes sense and not just like 3 minutes, but like a full story thing. Yeah, but it's, I think, also important to be seen and not just with teenagers that have a completely different mindset to you. And also when there's teenagers, usually teachers also behave differently because they tend to be a bit more towards them because they have a chance of being professionals. So what I saw from my experience at school, yeah. So we noticed that there's a lot of interest in the camp. People are really motivated and eager and demanding of those kind of opportunities. And that's why we offer a second week now. And what I'm trying to do is keeping my costs also as low as possible. Because I think that ballet should be for everybody and not just very rich people. So the camp is not set as a company. It's actually set as a non-profit. So we can keep our costs quite low. And that's on purpose.
That's just an important component of it because those financial barriers are so difficult, especially in something like ballet that can get so expensive. And I love what you said, the importance of just being seen as an adult, whether it's on stage performing more of a full length or, a storytelling ballet or even in class. I think that's so important. So many adults don't get that.
And we are in costumes and everything. And the first year was kind of hard because we had to make all the costumes because we didn't have the budget to buy stuff. Yeah, it was quite a hard project. And now, if we have enough money, which I need to convince my accountant, which is my mom, I need to convince her that we can spend about 5,000 euros to buy tutus, to do Swan Lake and so on. Because right now we are stuck with romantic ballets because we have the costume for those.
Right. You already have the costume, so you want to make it work.
Yeah. So for now, we're trying to make a bit of profit every year so that we can accumulate to have, stuff. We improved slowly. We bought more bars last year. This year, we bought a floor for one of the studios because the floor is very slippery. So we bought some dance mat to put on top, which is going to make our life a bit easier and so on. So we're trying to improve stuff every year, but with the budget we have, it's not always, it takes time. What we noticed is that we have quite a lot of Americans actually coming, and they are like, even with the traveling, it's cheaper than going to one in the US. And I'm like, wow. That must be so expensive in your country.
It is. Those costs add up for sure. So it's amazing, what you're doing, and it's exciting to see it grow. And I love that you work with your mom as well. That's amazing. I didn't know that.
Yes, yeah. I would not recommend all the time because it's sometimes, I'm supposed to be the boss and it's my mom. And at the same time, sometimes she wants to remind me that she's the mom and she's in charge. And you're like, no, in this nonprofit on paper, I am the boss. No, actually, to open a nonprofit in France, you need two people. One who lives in France and can go to the bank. Because as a nonprofit, we don't benefit from online banking. We can only have in-person banking. So someone needs to be able to go to the bank, basically. So, yeah, I needed someone there.
And your mom was there, and that's great. I love it. I was wondering if you could because I know you mentioned a lot of people travel from all over to come to the camp. So can you walk us through what a normal day at the ballet camp looks like?
So we have, first we have quite a lot of nationalities. So we have like Canadian, Americans, Finnish people, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, Portugal, and Germany and everything. So usually the camps start on a Friday. But it starts on a Friday evening. So everybody's arriving from their travels. Some people stay. We have 10 spots for people to live in a place that we rent with the dancers. So there's 10 people that can stay with us that have a room in a castle. And so we pick them up and they come, and then at 7:00 on a Friday, we have a dinner party with like, welcome, this is the teachers, this is your friends, and this is the schedule for tomorrow. Please join the WhatsApp group so you have the news for the next day and so on. And then the next day class, we start with a ballet class in the morning. And after that, we just have rehearsal with a lunch break, of course, that you can also take with us. We have a catering company doing the lunch. Unlike the first year where I was doing the lunch, which is a bit too much. but
A
we
lot of
didn't have
work.
the budget, so we did what we could. We rehearsed the whole day. Not everybody's dancing all day because you rehearse dance by groups. So not everybody learned the whole ballet. We have half of the people learn one half of the people learn the other half, and we put all together to put a piece together. So, and then at the end of the day, I teach myofascial release class with some massage balls to like kind of stand up again for the next day. So we usually start at like 9:30 and we finish at 6 with the last hour is just stretching and relaxing. It's not, massaging your feet, massaging your calves or whatever people need. I don't plan anything. I just go with the flow of what people need depending on what we were doing. We were doing a lot of calves last 2 years because we were doing Bournonville Ballet. And there's a lot of small jumps in those.
Yes.
But we'll see what Giselle goes this year.
Oh, that's exciting. It sounds like an amazing experience for adult dancers to be immersed in the world of ballet like that and to put on
It's
a
like
production.
company life.
I know
Yeah.
you mentioned you're a former scientist. You have a PhD in biology and used to work as a biology teacher. So what led to your interest in science, and was there anything that translated from that career to ballet?
So I was always a science lady. Science was my thing. With English, science and English, not French, not literature, not philosophy, just, But I did. So at first I wanted to do medicine. And in France, to do medicine, the first year of med school at the end of the first year is a contest. And you can validate your first year of university med school, but don't get into med school because you didn't pass the contest, which was my choice, not my choice, but which was my fate at the end, is that I got enough good grades to validate my first year of med school, but I was not good enough to get the contest. So I had to transfer my credit to biology school, which was possible. So that's what I did. I was like, okay, that's the closest to med school I'm going to get. Here you go. In the end, I think it was good because I don't think I would have dealt really well with the horrible schedule they have. And I need a routine, so I like my routine. And for me, when I was in biology school and I was dancing, for me ballet was my time where I didn't have to think about experiment, academia, politics, or whatever. It was my time for my body to move. And it was just a way for my brain to disconnect from work, but be concentrated enough that I could not think about it. Like keeping yourself so occupied in a way that you could not think about what was bothering you at work. And I realized during my experience with all the ballet camps I went is that there's a lot of scientists in ballet, or actually in adult ballet.
Yeah,
so I think
that's true.
I think there's something about this. I think it's the structure, because it's a very structured hobby. It goes really like, you know what's coming, but it's never the same at the same time. You're going to get pliés, you're going to get tendus, you're going to get jetés. You know that, but it's never the same. So I think in a way it's kind of helping. Otherwise, I think I got a lot of like the anatomy stuff. Like I see it less as a copycat like some kids do, like they just copy the teacher. I also try to understand how things are happening. And I don't think that really helped me in ballet a lot. That helped me a lot in Pilates, actually. And in my second career now.
I love that. I love to hear, from adult dancers who had, a career before transitioning into ballet and what the through line was, because I think you're right. There are a lot of scientists or, other dancers in ballet who appreciate the structure of it, but there's also that element of surprise that sort of keeps you on your toes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we kind of need that stimulation while still having something that moves, And it's a different kind of stimulation because you also have like the music. When I was at conservatory, we had the chance to have a pianist as well. So it was really lovely. And,
that makes a big difference.
It changes, it keeps you even more on your toes because you don't know what's coming.
Right. You have to sort of adapt to what the accompanist is playing.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned that you had this big career shift. You sort of moved away from science toward teaching Pilates and then, eventually, obviously, owning, these two ballet organizations. So was there any hesitation or anxiety that came with that career shift, and how did you work through that, or how did that all sort of come together?
Yes. So So I got my PhD, and when I was doing my PhD, I was I think you call that a teacher assistant, where I was teaching some classes, and I like teaching. I really like that part of my PhD was like the teaching part. I really liked it. It's really what I like to do. I tried after my PhD to find some sort of job. It was a really hard time because France is really codified in terms of like, you need this degree to do this, you need this degree to do that. And if you have too many degrees, they won't even consider you to work at McDonald's or to clean some houses. So I was really having a problem finding a job. And I found some like random sub teaching happening, and there was not a lot. And that I was really it was really starting to get hard. And I got injured at ballet, doing, I don't know how actually. And my dance teacher was like, whilst you're off, you need to do Pilates because I injured my foot. So you need to start to do Pilates so then you get in shape. And then when you come back, you'll be all good. So that's how I started Pilates. And I had some back problems still at that time. And with Pilates, my back problem disappeared. And I was like, cool, that sounds like a great plan, you know? And
amazing.
that year, I was sewing a little bit at the time. And the ballet camp in Finland asked me if I was okay to make the costumes that summer for them. And they would pay me, which will cover part of the cost to go there. Because I said I couldn't come that year because I didn't have the money. And I was like, sure, I can make the costume for you, sure. And my parents were like, it was every time you go there, you're so happy that this is your birthday gift. So they pay me the flight to go there. I was like not knowing what I wanted to do when I went there. I was like, I don't know. I still want to do dancing, but obviously I'm too old and not good enough to be a professional dancer. And so I still want to do that. I still want to teach, but I can't teach ballet because in France it's also codified and you need to pass certain exams and stuff, which I'm not good enough to pass. And I was like at a crossroad completely. Went to ballet camp, completely forgot about all my problems. And I discussed with a lot of other people, and I was like, no, I'm going to be a Pilates teacher now. That's how it came. And that's also why I moved to Amsterdam, actually, because I met people from Amsterdam that were friends that we met every summer for 4 years. And to study Pilates, I had the choice between somewhere in the south of France, which is completely far off from Bretagne, completely different mindset, or Amsterdam. And I was like, I know people in Amsterdam. I like speaking English. On we go.
There you go.
And that actually, my studies, my PhD and everything helped me a lot in Pilates school, because you need a lot of anatomy and understanding the nervous system and understanding people's injury and how to help them recover, because we do a lot of rehab actually, and understanding what people can and cannot do, and mechanically how everything works with the body. All my physiology courses and my anatomy courses and everything, now is a lot of help there.
And I've heard you speak before about the importance of Pilates, both for strengthening and also to recover from injuries.
It keeps the job also fun, because you're like, everybody's different, so you have to organize your classes every time differently. You also have to be able to adapt on the spot, because you never know some people how they're going to come. If they're, some chronic injury, sometimes you never know how they're going to come. So you have to stay on your toes and just like, okay, that's what we're going to do today.
Well, that's such important work to, get people back to dancing, to doing what they love. Yeah. And I was curious, for adult dancers who want to build strength or flexibility, can you share any basic exercises they can do or anything they should take into consideration when doing that?
So I have a couple of adult ballet dancers in some of my group classes. And usually they are actually the best in the class, because they understand the slowness of the motion, that not everything has to be fast. And really take your time in strengthening things. Don't rush through anything. Take your time. Use basic exercises, because even though they don't look like anything, if you do them properly, they're really interesting. And there's a few things that comes from some recent studies, actually, who says that you don't stretch your calves during class. And we should actually do the leg on the bar and all the stretching after class, not during class. Because if you stretch in a passive way, like doing your split, for example, you lose the fine-tuned control of your muscles for 30 minutes, which can lead to more injuries because you cannot control exactly what you're doing. So I'm a strong believer that before class, do not stretch passively. Go through active range of motion exercises. Don't stay in something. If you want to do your stretching, you do them after the end of your day, once you've done with your exercise. It's still something that in ballet hasn't grown into, because I think ballet is so like traditional and want to stick with tradition. But I think if it's better for your body, we should try to implement a little bit of those modern stuff in there. And so, yeah, stretching after. And the recent study comes from the Australian Ballet. I think it's from this year, who says that we should not stretch our calves actually until the end of the day because it increases the risk of Achilles injury, which is quite interesting, which I need to look a bit more into that study, but it looks very interesting in terms of approach.
Yeah,
so that's also
really
part of my research background.
Right. Yeah, I love it. No, I think that's really fascinating. And, it's interesting to me because I always have trouble, stretching before class because I'm not warmed up yet. So I usually wait till the end, and it's nice to know the science is starting to back me up on that.
Yeah. And wait until the end. Before class, it's better to just like do some pelvis stabilization exercises or just little abdominals. Nothing too heavy so you're not too tired, but just enough that your body is waking up. Some hip circles and stuff like that, just to get your body a bit moving, but nothing too stretchy.
Oh, that's great. That's great advice, for dancers to take into consideration. I know, as you mentioned, you started ballet later in life, when you were in your early 20s. What did you learn from that? And what advice would you have to other dancers who are starting later as well?
I started in a small school with a teacher, and I've danced before. So when I arrived to the beginner class, the lady was like, "Are you sure you've never danced before?" And I was like, "I did, but not ballet." So apparently it showed that I danced before because I was a bit coordinated. I don't know, because I think I have quite particular trajectory, is that I started ballet in September. And then by January, I was already 2 levels up. So I was already in the intermediate class by that time. Because I think as an adult, I was also a young adult, but as a young adult, if you have the appropriate teaching, you progress at the beginning very quickly. But because you learn the words and everything much faster than the kids, because you associate the things quicker. But then after that, you don't progress as fast as the others. I realized that when you're 25, dancing with 16 years old and taking the same classes every week as them, which was my case, they progress much faster on that advanced skill than you are. And it's probably something due to the nervous system somehow, that we are a bit less plastic than they are. But yeah, you will get there. You will just need more time.
Yeah, everything takes time.
Yeah, I also danced jazz for 10 years when I was a kid. So I had a little bit of knowledge about certain stuff and some coordination. And, I knew how to do a pirouette, not just turned out. But so there was a few things there in my head that was still, coordination-wise that came back. And I'm a big book reader, so I also read a lot. And so I learned a lot before my classes. I already knew what plie was and what tendu was.
And I was curious, with the work that you're doing with both, Amsterdam Amateur Ballet and Morlaix Ballet Camp, how have you seen the ballet world open up to accommodate adult dancers, and what changes do you still hope to see and contribute to?
So when we started, there was not a lot of choice, at least in Europe, for adult dancers to dance. And in terms of ballet camp, or in the summer, a lot of classes were closed at the same time as the kids are on holiday. If you're an adult, you're supposed to also not dance. And at least in Amsterdam, we start to see classes staying in the summer now. And I start to see in Europe a little bit more opening for adult dancers to dance in the summer, opening their intensive to adults. I don't know how that goes, because sometimes if we're with kids, it's not always going that well. It's not the most comfortable thing, but it starts to open up there. So there's still stuff, things happening that could be better. It is getting there, but it still could be better.
There's a lot of work still to be done, and I'm grateful for you and the work that you're doing. I think, it's amazing how you're helping to open up the world for adult ballet dancers. And I know we're getting towards the end of our time, but we have a section on the podcast called Petite Allegro. It's just like rapid fire questions, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
Well, one thing I always like to ask is, what's something that you always have to have in your ballet bag at every class or rehearsal?
Toe tape.
Yes, that's important. Is there I know that you do a lot of performances with adults, so is there a sort of ritual or a piece of advice that you always share with your adult ballet dancers before they perform, something you always do or something you always go over with them?
I always tell, don't forget to eat, but don't eat chocolate. No, because it stains the costumes.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, the costumes, those are important, especially in Swan Lake. Everything's white. That's good advice.
Yeah.
Is there a favorite ballet that you've ever seen or performed in?
I think the favorite piece I danced in was when we did, when I danced La Sylphide. I was one of the 3 pigs in La Sylphide. And that was in Finland, and we had Dina Bjorn choreographing the thing, she's a really big Bournonville lady, and she goes to renowned national ballets to perform, and she came to our camp to do that. And it was really nice, and we learned everything without stress or anything. It was really fun.
Well, that sounds amazing. Yeah, and La Sylphide is a beautiful ballet, so that would be a joy to perform in.
Yeah.
And I know that you do a lot of your own choreography as well. So where do you gain inspiration for your choreography?
For now, I haven't done much choreo. I did a little bit last year on the piece in December, but this year I mainly adapted stuff from Royal Ballet mainly. Otherwise, when I create something, I'm mainly inspired by the music, and I just go with what the music says. So I just go with the flow.
I love that. Yeah, such beautiful music in ballet. And then the last question I always like to ask everybody who comes on the podcast is, in a perfect world, what would ballet look like, or what would you want it to be?
I would like to have ballet work that is a way more inclusive, both about ballet adult dancers, even though that's getting better, but also about like body-wise. I believe you can have very beautiful dancers that don't have to be 90 pounds.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, this has been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed learning about you and your work. And, for anybody who's listening who wants to connect with you or maybe learn more about the ballet camps that you do, where can they find you on social media?
The easiest for me is I don't have a Facebook on my own name. So the easiest is to find me on Instagram. I think it's julie.pilates.ballet. And from there, there's all the handles to my ballet camps and to the Amsterdam Amateur Ballet. They're both linked in my bio.
Oh, perfect. That's great. Well, we'll link all of that in the show notes as well. And thank you so much for your time. It's been so great to meet you and to chat about everything you're doing in ballet. Julie was the best. She's working so hard to increase the accessibility of performance opportunities in adult ballet. I'm so inspired by the work she's doing, and I'm excited to see where else it takes her. For anyone interested in receiving more information about both of her ballet organizations, Amsterdam Amateur Ballet and Morlaix Ballet Camp, as well as their upcoming programs and performances, I'm including links to the websites in the show notes, as well as a link to Julie's Instagram. Julie also mentioned some new information about how to stretch that has come from the Australian ballet. I'm including a link to an article in Dance Magazine about that in the show notes if anyone's interested in learning more. The article is titled "Why the Australian Ballet Dancers Quit Stretching," so check it out. My own contact info is in the show notes as well, and as always, if you like what you hear, please consider rating and reviewing this podcast on your platform of choice, or feel free to send me an email at theadultballetstudio@gmail.com. I always love hearing from you. We'll be back with a very exciting guest next month on Tuesday, July 2nd, so stay tuned. Happy dancing, everybody, and see you at the bar.